So my doll making Q&A live stream yesterday didn't go to plan thanks to my dodgy internet connection. So today I want to go through the rest of the questions that I had for that stream in a slightly more controlled way. If you just found me, by the way, welcome. My name's Jo. I'm a full-time artist based on a narrowboat in Wales. We have a question from Wendy, who's one of my channel members. And Wendy asks, have you always made dolls with a backstory to them? I think it adds so much when you riff off the doll's character and lifestyle. The dolls seem to come alive more and acquire their own personalities as you're making them and talking about what kind of person they're turning out to be. So I don't always give them a backstory. I just go on what they give me. When I first started making dolls years ago, I decided to give each one a backstory, and I tried to link them all together and create a world where they all existed, which was a great idea in theory, but in practice it turned out to be far too much to keep up with. I found that every time I made a doll, I was getting them ready to list online, and I was getting myself stressed out over trying to come up with a story as well as a name and everything else for them. And I'd sit there in kind of analysis paralysis, trying to get everything together, trying to gather my thoughts before I could actually put the doll out there. So to make things easier for myself, I decided, right, I'm just going to give them a name. That's it. They'll have a first name, a last name, and then I'll put them out into the world, and that's it. And I did that for quite a few years. And then more recently, as I've been making more complex dolls, I've started to feel like some of them have a bit of a story. They have a bit more to tell us. I also, this year, started an online portfolio on my website and writing a little bit about each doll as I put their photo up on there. And I felt like it'd be nice just to have a few lines about each doll. When I put them up on my portfolio. So this is when I started just kind of giving them stories again. And I do like to do that. I really enjoy it when that happens. It doesn't happen for every doll. My last doll, the little Fly Garrick themed girl, she didn't have a story, actually. I was tired when I made that one. It's getting into the darker half of the year, and I am quite tired at the moment. I've been working quite a lot, and I felt like I just couldn't come up with anything. So I decided not to force it. I thought I'll just give her a name and I'll just put her online. And so I feel able to do that now. When I started, I felt so much pressure to give every doll a story that it just got to be too much. So now if it happens, it's great. If when I look at a doll, I feel like, oh yeah, she's got a personality coming through and I can imagine a backstory for her, then I'll add that to it. But if I don't get anything, then I don't worry about it. The next question is from Potato Pie Head. Shout out to you. Thank you for being there in the live stream, telling me when my camera wasn't working. It was a really big help. Potato Pie Head, and still love the username. Potato Pie Head asks, I recently tried making a doll with a button jointed head, but the head keeps flopping back. I followed along with your video and I'm using a strong upholstery thread, but it's not working. What should I do? So there are a few reasons why you might get the head flopping and not sitting as you want it to. I've got one of my recent dolls, Emily Lanternfire, here to demonstrate. Now, the head shape on my dolls is a flat shape. It just has a front and a back. So the way I sit the head on the neck is like this. So the head sits on the front of the neck. What you need to remember with the thread for the neck, it's on my dolls, it comes from a button on the back and it comes up in a straight line to the top of the head here. So this comes through just on the front of the neck. And then the head sits forward. If I was to bring the thread out on the top of the neck, the head would flop back. So if it depends how you are positioning it. If you are bringing the threads out right on top of the neck, that might be the issue. unless you have a rounder head shape and a flat top to the neck, in which case the thread will come out on the top. But it's a matter of playing around with it. Depending on the shape of the body and the head, you may need to position buttons and threads and things differently. So it's a matter of playing around with it and seeing what position works. But this is the way I found it works for me. Button on the back, coming up through the front of the neck to just in front of the seam on the top of the head. And that works well for me. The tension of the thread can also make a difference. If you have the tension too tight, then you might find the neck crumpling and the head's too stiff and it won't move. If you have the thread too loose, then the head is just going to flop. So tightening the thread before you fasten it off, just so it moves, so the head moves from side to side, but it doesn't flop and it doesn't sit too tight. The other thing is stuffing. The neck, to support the head, the neck needs to be stuffed really, really firmly. It can be difficult to push the stuffing right up to the top of the neck here, but you need to get the stuffing right up to the top and you need to stuff it till it's firm. You don't want this to be soft. It needs to have a lot of structure so it will support the tension of the thread going through it. If you don't have enough stuffing in the neck, then it's just going to either crumple or it's going to flop. So those are the main points. It's the positioning of the thread, it's the tension, and it's the stuffing in the neck. So I hope that helps. If it doesn't, if you're still having problems, do get back to me, do leave me a comment, and I can make another video about neck joints. So the next question is from Sheena. Sheena asks, where do you draw inspiration from for your doll creations? Do you name them before or after you create them? So inspiration comes from all over the place. I'm inspired a lot by nature. I like to get out and walk. I live in rural Wales on the canal, so I'm right here amongst nature, which is amazing. And I love to get out walking along the canal and in the woods. And I get a lot of inspiration from that. I'm also inspired by music and things I read and things I listen to. So inspiration can come from pretty much anywhere. I tend to give my dolls a name mostly after I've made them. Sometimes I'll have an idea for a name before I make a doll, occasionally, but most of the time it's after. I'll look at the whole theme of the doll, I'll get a feel for the personality, and then come up with a name from that. And again, inspiration for names often comes from nature. I'll put a couple of words together for a last name that I think kind of fit together and have a nice sound to them. And then I'll find a first name that sounds nice with the last name. So that's really how I do it. So the next question is one that a few people have asked, and I have answered this before. And it's, when will I be releasing a pattern, or will I be releasing a pattern? And the answer to that is, I have talked about this a few times before. I don't have any plans to release a pattern at the moment. The reason for that is I'm an artist first and a sewer second, really. I sew to create dolls because I see it as just a construction method to get my dolls into the world rather than making dolls because I like sewing, if that makes sense. I muddle through with sewing, and I'm not an expert in sewing, particular machine sewing. I'm not an expert by any means. And I don't work to patterns. I don't make clothes. I wouldn't have a clue how to put together a professional pattern that somebody else could follow. And if I do ever release a pattern, I want it to be something that's professional and that I can then charge a fair price for and be compensated for that fairly. So unless I can do that, I won't release a pattern. I work from scraps of cardboard. I make templates for myself, for my dolls. and then I adjust those constantly, and depending on what I'm making. So what I'm doing a series on my membership for the Orb Weavers level on template making for yourself. So what I want to do in this series is start right from the basics and go through the way I construct templates and design them for my own dolls. So what my intention is for you to be able to have the skills to make a template for yourself, for your own design, and to be inspired to create something that's unique to you. So the first video went out last week. There will be another one in October. The next one I'm going to be focusing on proportions for doll making, and I'm hoping that that will be helpful for people. So you can access that by joining my membership at the Orb Weavers level. And then as the videos come out over time, you'll get access to all of those videos to watch as many times as you like, as long as you're a member. So I hope you found this helpful. If you've got anything out of it, please do hit the like button and let me know. Super thanks are always appreciated as well, but no pressure there. If you're interested in my dolls, you can find those at spiderthread.com. I will put a link in the description. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you get a 10% discount. Emily here is still available. Most of the dolls I've made in this size recently have already found homes, but Emily is still there waiting for the right person to find her. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.